Welcome to the CM0102 Super League preview show. We are, just short of 48 hours away at time of record from the new season starting. The transfers are all being processed, the pre-season friendlies have been done, and I'm joined by a host of the managers to discuss who's going to do well, who's going to do shit, and why Gazelles are widely predicted to finish bottom. So good evening to everyone. Thank you for everyone who will be watching this as of Saturday morning, including the legions of new fans we seem to have attracted by doing absolutely nothing. We really appreciate you joining the party. Let's start with our defending champion. Hello, Steve.
Good evening, mate.
How are you?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. Looking forward to things kicking back off Sunday night.
Yeah, absolutely. And are you... Now that you've won it, are you feeling a pressure to try and retain it, or are you just, breezing through life at the minute?
No, I think in terms of retaining it, I think I've got to be looking at doing it probably a bit more seriously than others have done. I said it a bit last night, having a bit of a chat with Dimble and Mac. With the movement between clubs of managers, with some big players leaving some of the clubs that have been up at the top for the majority of the whole save, I'm pretty consistent where my centre-halves are obviously changing. My centre midfielder, my DM line and my front three will start the season as they finished it. So that consistency may give us a little bit of an edge. So I just think with the amount of upheaval that's gone on in and around, I think we've certainly got to be looking at attempting to do it at least.
Okay. Greasy, hello, pal.
I'm all right, mate. How are you?
Yeah, very well. Thank you.
I have an issue I have to draw to your attention.
Go on.
After enjoying the friendlies that were on last night,
yep,
there was only 2 teams that you referred to as former champions. And that was current champions Dudley Hill. And every time you mention that Dirty Devils team, it is the former champions. You've got 2 former champions sitting in this chat now, and we were just disrespected by not having the respect on our names.
Okay, well, let me try and fix that for you now. I won't ask you the question I was going to, and I'll say hello to former champion Ian Edwards. How are you, pal?
I'm good, mate. Thank you. Yeah, I actually, I'll disagree with Greaves a little bit there. I was quite chuffed with all the plaudits you gave me in the build up to the Northern Burn game last night. I've never been called legend so much in my entire life. So,
well,
you can't use the word legend without getting somebody else's approval. Can we just get that document? Well, Dimble for the meeting minutes, please. Can you note that down?
Noted. Whether you're allowed to be described as a legend by me or not, Ian, it's certainly one of the opinions I have as a former champion. What can you say, not necessarily advice to Steve, but how difficult is it going to be for Steve to retain it?
Well, it's only been done once, hasn't it? From memory, as someone who I think might have mentioned once or twice that he managed it, who seems to have disappeared from the scene now. But
the ruining Fulchester.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a bit of a Hoolier Evans sort of situation there, wasn't it? But I think it always seems to work better when you got one man just pulling the strings. Two arguing together doesn't seem to work. But no, I think Steve alluded to it. Consistency is kind of the key. We know it is throughout a season, and consistency from the end of one season at the start of the next can be just as vital. Can definitely do it. He's kept hold of the likes of Luca Toni and Roy Mackay, who the ones that sort of propelled him. Losing one of the centre backs, Rusty Core, I guess is big. But Steve found something last season and he just rode with it, and momentum is still with him. So yeah, I think he can do it.
There's a couple of points you made there, so I'm going to pick up on both of those. Firstly, hello, Macca, how are you?
Hello, Fyfie. I'm very well, thank you.
We were all sort of made aware of your sort of situation, which didn't help with the derailment of Fulchester at the end of last season. How did you react when you watched it back to see that you'd missed out on the playoffs on the final day?
Do you know what? It's probably a bit of karma, actually. I think I missed out on goal difference technically, but there was one season a couple of years back where I squeaked in on goal difference to the detriment of Haggis. So to be honest, I took it in fairly good grace and a bit of karma, and obviously blamed Ryan for absolutely everything.
And as Ian suggested, Ryan's now out the scene, sort of dealing with his own personal stuff at the moment. So you looking forward to being firmly back in charge again and sorting it out?
Absolutely. We're going back to the swashbuckling Colchester of 2 seasons ago.
That's what we like to hear. That's what we like to hear. Another point Mr. Edwards made was that it always works better when there's one man in charge. When there's 2 people arguing, it doesn't work. So that seems like the appropriate time to welcome back to the Super League, Mr. Duggan, and under the umbrella of the manager, Mr. Free Dix at the Dragons this season.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. How you doing?
Yeah, very well. Glad to have you back with us. I presume, from what I understand, that it's largely you are in control. Jamie's moved upstairs and Wood is just there for bants from time to time.
Yeah, just being as always, mate. But listen, the league is better off. The league is better for the return of the 3 Dicks. You know, that full stop, end of.
Well, we are certainly glad to have you back. You've already made your presence felt with some quality work in terms of graphics and some stuff that we'll be sharing tonight. One of the other words Ian used was consistency, and someone who consistently moves around the Super League is Mr. Potato Mourinho, who seems to be on about his 11th club. How are you, pal?
Yeah, not bad. I didn't realise I had that reputation. But yeah, that's I mate, not bad.
I'm just trying to work out. So you've obviously left Astor now, and you're at Leddersford. What attracted you to the job? I think Leddersford have officially had the most amount of managers, and you're the manager that's had the most amount of positions, whether that's assistant or caretaker or manager. So what attracted you to it?
Alf pestering me all the time, asking me if I'd spoken to you about the move, and I said I can't really be asked, Alf, to be honest. There's probably 1 season to go. No, I want Astor back. All right then. And then I realised that they had Ronaldinho and I had Fausto Rossini, and that sealed the deal.
It's very, very fair. And last but certainly not least, one of the managers of last season, in fact, I think I managed to post earlier that you finished 2nd in manager of the season. It's Mr. Dimble.
Good evening, everyone.
How are you, pal?
I'm well, yeah. I might have to leave very shortly because my daughter's rolling around, but yeah, very good, thank you.
Good. Well, welcome everyone. Let's get straight on to the conversation, and Greavesy, former champion, let's let you start off. Tell us about the approach you're taking into the new season. Talk about some of the signings you're making, and you know, in the friendly, we saw Swan go all out attack pretty much, and it didn't quite work. So are you reverting back to type this season? Can we expect something a bit different?
All attacking players bar one have been sold.
Wonderful.
So if he tries to play that formation again, it will be impossible because those players do not exist. Attacking players have been sold. Aggressive defensive players have been bought in. The most attacking player I have signed is Rui Costa, and I'll just leave it at that.
Cheers for that, Greasy. She's gone back to sleep. Cheers.
I'm not here to entertain. I'm here to get results.
Oh, we know, Greasy.
Season 1.
Yeah, we know that.
Obviously, the most people who are going to be invested in this conversation are going to be the managers, particularly the ones who aren't able to join us live for it, and we'll be watching it back. It's fair to say there's a friendly rivalry between yourself and Haggis, and I must have seen probably 100 posts in the 3 weeks that we've had no official action of him reminding you that they finished above you this season. So obviously winning the title is your main aim, but just finishing above Haggis, is that second?
Well, no, because they've only ever made the playoffs once, and that was in a previous iteration, and he'd done it on goal difference. I want to be well ahead of Haggis because they are bottom feeders of the league, and they're normally guaranteed 6 points. It's only my blindsidedness and taking my eye off the ball that allowed that little cretin to actually get a point off me, let alone 3. And it is partly what has made me realise that I need to revert back to my ways and not have to deal with the low lies of this league anymore. I shall rise above. The cream always rises to the top, and that's what I'm going to be doing again.
Fyfie, can I just ask a
please?
Just to the other managers, who are we backing in a fight between Greavesy and Campbell?
I think they'd just start kissing.
Do you reckon?
There's a lot of sexual tension there.
Yeah, there'd be no fighting. It'd be raw, but it'd be something
I
else.
think Campbell just like jib him in the stomach with a fucking screwdriver or a rusty nail. He'd like shag it. And then
Campbell would have to be like pushed to the edge. Like Greaves would just be like lobbing rotten veg at him or something to wind him up. And he'd be like, no man, I don't want any scrap, giving it all that. And then Greaves would say just something that would trigger him. I don't know, like slag off fucking hearts or something. And then that'd be it. Bang. And Greaves would be like, hey, whoa, it's just banter. But next thing you know, Ian's on a murder charge. Sorry, Greaves. I mean, I reckon he'd kick my ass as well for what it's worth.
Yeah, but there's not much I can do. He's had so many STDs, he's immune to anything.
Exactly, that's the point.
You can have well, if bloody everything all kicks off and there's a nuclear war, Campbell will be wandering about, tinfoil hat on. Just there.
Just bizarre. We've literally been recording about 7 minutes.
Big truths.
Didn't Ian say he might have the audio on here and not the visual, so that his young son could hear character assassination?
He's not in, he's not in, unfortunately, for him or a talk. Not that we'd understand it.
Just one more initial question for you, Greasy, and we do stereotype. We mock slightly, but we do stereotype your defensive mindset. But do you feel somewhat vindicated in your approach when your striker is picking up World Footballer of the Year?
Well, yeah, and the fact that it was partly my stolen tactic that led Steve to his maiden title. I'll always love a little bit of credit from that, and I'll always dig it in. But
so you're essentially saying that was your second title as much as it was Steve's first?
You know, I've got the screenshot saying I can't see how four DMCs of arrows works, but it led him to a title.
Can I just from halfway through the season, I had how many of my DMs had arrows on?
I don't know. I forgot. I stopped watching when my team went playing. I passed out sleep. I always turned my laptop off in a dross and went and had a wank and a cry, and that just set me up.
Last half of the season, I played with that. I took them off when I played Burn. When I played Ian and I beat Ian, I took them off, and they stayed off. So, but I'll give you the credit for giving me the idea.
Beat me all the time, Steve. You don't need arrows in any positions. You always turn up and beat me. Makes no difference.
Steve told you to sign Saviola and Mackay.
Steve, do you deserve any credit for your title win?
Hey, you Tato and fucking Zanetti.
Tato, I'm getting it too. I'm getting it too, Tato. Don't get him, get Mackay. All right then, Tato. Fucking smashes it, wins the league.
Can we take it a step back further? When I met Steve Wright at a train station and convinced him not to jump in front of it because he kept finishing 13th. That's where this rise started, yeah.
Well, to be fair, I am his life coach every fucking Monday morning as well.
See, you're on the pedestal now, lad. People will go for you.
He gets his misses, mate.
Oh, I haven't been got up for the last 3-4 seasons before and whatever anyway.
Yeah, I think you're right, Tato. His missus plays champ.
Must do. I reckon she's taken over.
Well, he's only been successful since she's been on the scene, let's be fair.
Has anybody ever seen him and her on the same Zoom together?
No, even their loved up little Facebook profile could quite easily be a split screen. Dimble, let me ask you, you're next up on the screen then. You've made some interesting looking signings. You had a hell of an end to the season. It was one hell of a run to get into the playoffs, and people are even tipping you as dark horses to win it. obviously you're hoping that will continue and you'll have another successful year, but what can we expect? More sort of variations of tactics, or is there one in particular with who you've signed that you're looking to deploy?
Yeah, I brought in some good width, so that's the first thing. So I won't be relying on the narrow to get me anywhere. So I'm looking forward to mixing it up a bit. To be honest, I've got 2 or 3 formations I'll probably rotate between. That's the plan anyway. Obviously, these plans go out the window when you start booking news in. But the plan is to switch between 2 or 3 formations. And I've got players that are a bit versatile as well. So like Zambrotta and Bordenkov, I think they can both play in the narrow as well. So that's the plan. If I do that, they will play on the right and left of the narrow. So yeah, it's exciting to have new players. Like how good is it to see those new players in your colours and look at the stats, and it's exciting to see. The best part of the whole thing is bringing in the new players and like the possibilities of what that can mean. And for me, it's just making the playoffs again. I think I overachieved slightly last season, and this season I'm expected to do something. So there's a different kind of pressure on my season, I think.
Well, that was going to be my next question. Similar to what I asked Steve. Now that you've sort of broke into that top 6 and made the playoffs and really, like I say, ended the season so strong, are you feeling that sort of different pressure?
Honestly, not. No, I'm not. I feel like I've achieved something, even though it's only a very small thing. I got to the playoffs. I won a game in the playoffs, so I feel like I've achieved something, and the pressure for me is off a little bit. It's kind of a free hit for me, similar to Steve in a way. I know I didn't achieve as much as he did, but I feel like I can give it a go this season without being a bit scared of getting beat, which I think quite a lot of the time I was just scared of getting beat, and that's why I wasn't any good really. I was very patchy with my form and stuff until the end of the last season. So yeah, it's been fine for me. I'm a bit annoyed about my pre-season because I did have a very, very nice deal lined up, which fell through after the late manager swap, which I think would have given me the final piece of what I wanted. So a bit annoyed about that, but I understand that any transfer is in principle in it, so can't really complain too much.
Well, we'll be touching on all the managerial merry-go-round shortly. Let me bring Maka back in then. Obviously, synonymous with making the playoffs. We've already alluded to the fact that you didn't manage it last year.
Ryan didn't.
Sorry?
Ryan didn't.
Ryan didn't, sorry. Yeah, let's clear that one up. Fulchester generally considered title contenders, if not favourites, last couple of years as well. But you've allowed 1 or 2 big names to leave this year. What was the thinking process behind that? Just freshen the squad up a bit for one last charge at it?
Yeah, I'd probably become a bit too dependent on Veron to pull out moments of magic. So what I've tried to do with that deal is give myself a stronger 15 and a bit more versatility. I think last year I'd probably become a bit predictable, and it only took maybe, I don't know, Ryan's odd asymmetric formations and whatever else for me to be quite easy to play against. So don't get me wrong, 2-7-1 won't die completely. The wingers will probably stay as is, but in terms of number of DMs, MCs, AMs and attackers, that I think I've got a lot more flexibility now. So I'll be looking to mix it up quite a bit. And to be fair, bringing in Lucio as part of that mega deal, I think actually my defence is way more bolstered than people are giving me credit for. Like Yepes and Lucio at the back should be like rock solid, particularly with Button Gattuso in front. I mean, that's an upgrade on what I previously had. And Veron was only churning out, 7.2s or whatever every week. So I don't think I'm much weaker than people are probably taking into account. But I do believe I've got a lot more tactical flexibility with the deals done.
No, and you kind of alluded in your intro that we might expect more as a sort of return to this kind of champagne swagger football that you could quite easily go out and smash somebody 3 or 4 if it's your night.
Yeah, I'm certainly looking to do that. I mean, there's no point in me having Ronaldo, Shevchenko, and Figo and not putting them on the pitch. Ably supported by Neved, Beckham, Gattuso, Van der Vaart, and Nicky Butt. I mean, that's still a pretty class midfield with plenty of industry in there. And now the backups aren't too bad either. Duff and Quaresma aren't bad in season 5. Comandini will probably get a look in. Trezeguet is a decent striker if he gets a run. And I've got 2 decent centre halves as backup for Yepes and Lucio as well in Melito and Curtis. So I feel like I've got two very decent 11s to knock about. Oh, I've got, what's his name? Aaron Spring, Van der Laan, Aaron Winter, whatever he's called. Do you know what I mean? I've got a nice bit of flexibility in there. The only thing is, if I do suffer a spate of red cards and injuries in centre midfield, I'm probably a bit fucked. But other than that, I do think I've got a nice bit of variety and plenty of gung-ho-ness about the team to just have a go. I might as well. It's the last season, right? I've already kind of proved I can play the game to a decent degree against my peers. So I might as well just fucking go for it. Just go all out. Why not?
I'm looking forward to seeing what that results in. Steve, you've obviously had a turbulent transfer window in terms of your main centre back left through his own choice, not through yours. Then your two sort of backup centre backs, if you like, or one starter and one sub, they went and retired. So you've had to really look at the defensive side of the game in the window. Do you think it helps having a specific area that you need to focus on, or does it hinder that you can't go out looking for necessarily the best deals on paper? You have to look for specific deals, and people, you know, your opposition managers know that, so they're looking for the best deals for them and not just going to give you decent centre backs on a plate.
Yeah, I mean, the main thing for me this season is most of the deals I've done, apart from obviously I do appreciate the little bit of leeway we did get with Rustico, because to lose him at that league for how we were from halfway through this season that's just finished before. So he's had a full season and a half of churning out at least an 8 in probably 95% of his games. And to end up maybe losing him out of the league would have been a travesty, whether he's played for me or not. But he's been my starting centre half since probably halfway through season 2 of me being involved. I know Ryan said when I first joined and he wasn't playing to start with, his stats are not a Super League centre half starting in season 1. He needs to build them up a little bit. And yeah, it was a massive loss. And then obviously Maldini were brought in, as for Southgate, and then my 3 main centre halves. And the thing is, though, like I say, people have actually come to me more than me chasing about this season, which has been a bit of a testament to what we've done.
Comes with being successful, doesn't it?
It does, but you have then got to give up to make sure you've got enough at the back. I think there was something in that, what we were saying about, or you were saying earlier, you've got certain players, just put them in at centre half and they're good enough. I get that, but I needed to overhaul my defence big time. So hence, we sorted out Thuram coming in. Obviously, the older players, Southgate, Maldini, they were fantastic for us, bringing Lizarazu in. They really stood by it. So a 33-year-old Thuram was probably better at 33 than Maldini and Southgate are. It's not a worry at all. Rio Ferdinand's he's been very up and down.
Well, Duggan's a big fan of Rio Ferdinand on this save. We know that much.
The amount of 20s he's got, he might as well be Oliver Kahn. But again, it's a little bit of a risk given his form. But his majority of his ups have been against Dudley Hill. I think he scored the Gazelles loads against us. I bet every goal he scored, whether it be a penalty or a goal, has been against Dudley Hill. And then obviously switching up at ending, bringing Gary Neville in as well. So not only that, it does cover his right hand side from losing some players that play out on right as well, because they can both play wing back, and Sherman and Neville. So yeah, it's been a bit forced upon, but I think we do look a little bit better defensively. And like I say, we had to lose Zanoni to bring the deal and bringing Ferdinand in. Tudor didn't get much of a look in last season, which obviously then enabled us to go try and get. It broke my heart, as everybody knows. It broke my heart to let Stephen go, but Joey Johnson is more than adequate replacement, probably in centre midfield than Zanoni's as well. Zanoni's more of a right-sided player, whereas Joey Johnson's more of a central player. So yeah, I think we've. I can't say we've massively improved until things start, but on paper we're as strong, if not a little bit stronger.
No, it's certainly an interesting to see how you've developed the squad as a champion as opposed to a challenger. I mean, I'd never thought I'd see the day where a Leeds fan would be trying to defend a title by signing a pair of Man United defenders, but there we go. I hope it pans out well for you. I'm sure you'll still be largely the people's champ going into the season. But then again, we all thought Mr. Edwards would be as well, and they were all quick to try and shoot him down once he won that first title, weren't they? Tato, let's talk Leddersford briefly then. And what I like is quite a few managers have taken this approach. You've kind of stuck with what you know. So you've dipped into the Astor pool and brought in a couple of those players with you. But you're one of the few managers who had a massive war chest, and you weren't afraid to use it in the auction either, with some very big bidding.
Yeah, I mean, there's no point. The money's just sitting there doing nothing, is there? If this is the last season, then I may as well spend it and try and bolster the squad in the areas that were a bit weak.
Are you thinking this move to Leddersford with the players they already had, the likes of Van Nistelrooy, Ronaldinho, coupled with what you've added, Neil Scally being the big one, obviously. The fans are excited by Lee Chun-So signing. Is this the year of the Tato?
I doubt it, but what I tried to do really is to last season at Astor, I had these players that I preferred and I liked, and they were doing bits individually, like they were doing all right in their own way individually. But then I didn't have a decent striker to put the ball in, and I didn't have that world class. Every single time people looked at my team, said there's no one world class, which is absolutely right. So by moving over to Leeds, I've got several world class players, or a couple of world class players. Van Nistelrooy has been awful for the last couple of seasons, maybe the whole save. I don't know.
Basically, the entirety of the Super League round, he's been fucking awful. I'm not hanging my hat on him at all, which is why I went for a couple of strikers in the auction, just in case I need to go 3 up top. What I've tried to do with this squad is to base it on which I like to do, the money ball style approach with the stats. If you looked at the stats for last year, Leddersford, no one in the top 20 for tackles per game at all. Nobody at all, and that's ridiculous. Even at Astor, I had several. Nicky Butt smashing it up there, and DI quality up there. So I just signed, I think 3 of the top 20, so that I can actually stop people from, scoring against me. And Rayard with the assists. I had Petkoff top of the assists for Leddersford, but there was no one else again in the top 20. Nobody near. So I've got Rayard in to add to that as well. So hopefully with Diop as well, who's very creative. Hopefully I've got all the little bits of some world-class players, some of my little favourites that, the neutrals can get on board with, and let's just see what happens, have some fun. I can actually see you sort of off camera doing that sort of money ball style, throwing stuff at blackboards while you're picking your players. It's quite strong imagery. You paint a picture when I ask the question, is this the year of the Tato, that you're kind of going into it? No, probably not. But secretly, you must be thinking, there'd be no point in you being involved and being as passionately involved unless you were going into it with the intention of winning it.
Yeah, obviously everybody wants to win it. I'm very competitive and I get fed up when I lose, but last season I sort of always expected to lose and I couldn't really do much about it. So there's a lot more pressure on me this year because people know that I've got Ronaldinho, you can see that I've got Van Nistelrooy, but I think everybody needs a striker that scores a lot of goals. I don't actually have one of those. I didn't get that many offers for Van Nistelrooy that were worthwhile. Everyone was after Dino, not Van Nistelrooy, and you need, there's no point in getting rid of Dino and losing out one of the best AMCs in the game. I don't trust Van Nistelrooy really. Aside from that, I'm very happy. I've got assists. I'm very solid. I like my squad. It's interesting. I'm going to be playing around with the tactics a bit, like I always do, and mix things up and have some fun. I'm aiming. Yes, I would hopefully get into the top 6, but I think the lack of that 15 goal striker might let me down.
Tato, just for a bit of context, I don't think I've ever had a striker get over double figures, but have typically done well. And in hindsight, I probably would have done Sheva for Van Nistelrooy. Would that have perked your interest? No? Okay, fair enough.
I think you play 3 up front, which is something that I might have to go down that route. I did that with Astor as well. I think if you play 3 up front, you can get away with 3 lots of 6, 3 lots of 7. It works the same. But obviously, if I'm looking at 1 up front, which most successful teams last year and for a while now have played 1 up front, the winners, the finalists or whatever. So I think to start off with, I'll go with 1 up front, and then but I have brought in those extra players like Inzaghi, Nikolaidis not really going to play, but Diop as well, people like that who can sit up front in a 3.
Yeah, I think you're right. You probably need 15 to 20 goals from whatever forward combination you're using, including your AMCs, and then another 10 to 15 from whatever midfield combination you've got going on, really. That's great observation, that.
Double figures is really good for any player in the Super League.
Yeah. Unless it's in pens or he's cheats.
Yeah, I think Astor had a poor season, and like Rossini and Zizi both got 8 goals in the league. So I don't particularly think 10 goals is that many, to be honest. But
well, actually, interesting you should mention him. So we will talk about some of the other clubs as well who aren't represented by their managers here. Your thoughts on, you brought Zizi into the Super League, and now he's going. He was kind of left with Alf because you moved on, but now he's going. Alf has instantly got rid of him, and he's going to Halls and to play with Jens.
yeah, I considered going for Roberts, but obviously if I've got Van Nistelrooy, I don't think him and Roberts would complement each other very well. I think it's probably one or the other. Roberts was rubbish for me for last year for a long period of time, and he really let me down for about 10 games. Got good towards the end of the season, but I mean, he's a class signing for Hools. I don't know who they swap for him. Probably a bag of peanuts, but I don't. I'm pretty certain it was someone crap. He's a very, very good signing. Livrani, who doesn't play ever. He's just an AI bully. Doesn't play for Hools, and now he's got a very, very good. Zizi Roberts has scored nearly 20 goals in a season and a half. Nearly, I think. Maybe about 15, 16. And to have that for a player like Livrani is, obviously a very good deal. Yeah.
I've got the game open in the background here. During his tenure at Astor, 36 starts, 5 sub appearances, 17 goals and 2 assists.
Nice.
That's not bad. 1 and 2 for a crap team, for a rubbish, with no world class players around him. You stick him in Fulchester's team, for example. That old one, Fulchester, with Beckham and Giggs swinging it in, he'd score hatfuls. So,
can you not talk about Giggs leaving? Macca's still quite sore about that.
Ian, let's talk Northern Burn, because Tato made a couple of interesting points about world-class players and teams that are successful playing one up top. 15 plus goal a season strikers. You've had all of that, and you were saying before we hit record that you're ready to, you've been ready to change it up this year. You're looking at going 2 up top. You're one of these that's allowed some big name players to move on for this final season of this save. Are you excited by the fresh new Northern Burn?
I'm very excited. As I mentioned off camera, we ended the season in probably as poor a form as anybody. We couldn't buy a win, so we have to do something different, because the setup that won us the whole thing is all of a sudden not even winning us a match. So I was looking for options, really, and so pre-season it's been about taking maybe 2 or 3 different setups into the new season, trying to get that extra man in there, so we've got 11 strong players at all times rather than 10 and a filler, which will enable us to mix it up a little bit and maybe be a little bit less predictable. There was only, probably letting Sigalko go, there was only 3 guys that I would have took in his place, and they had to come with another starter. So he would have stayed if I couldn't have got one of those 3 strikers. Fortunately, I was able to get Cliver in. So really excited about that. Absolutely gutted to...
Ian, just out of interest, who were the other 2 you would have taken, just out of interest? If you were willing to reveal.
Who would I have taken? Van der Katter and Bruley were. I had them all written down. I've got about 1,000 guys written down here. I would have had Montella. In fact, looking at this, I think with everyone who's crossed out, Montella was the only other one I would have taken. I don't.
His little book.
I don't
even Chris Sutton.
I don't think a deal could have been done, but they're all. Chris Sutton was down there. No.
I'll tell you honestly. You know what?
Offers for Montella.
I'm saying this now, and it's recorded, right? given Martin Penterson's fucking abuse of Chris Sutton is getting a game against Gazelles this year. 100%. He is on.
Yeah,
Have
Montella.
to keep an eye on your fixtures to when they're coming up, because he'll probably be sitting in the reserves the whole time leading up to it.
More importantly, I hope Damien Duff doesn't get a game against Northern Burn, because he's bound to play an absolute blinder.
You've put the curse on it now, Ian, so it's definitely going to happen.
Play Martin Ericsson and then it'll bounce it out.
I want him out. I don't even want him at my bloody club. Why is he still there? Honestly, I managed to get rid of Fred Risp, but I can't get rid of Martin Ericsson.
Right, hang on. Right, because obviously this all happened before I was in charge of stuff. So hang on.
You're both in charge.
Yeah, basically send Ericsson to Astor, please.
No, not Astor. You're both in charge, Fyfie. There was when the two of you were in charge.
How many times have I come on a Zoom meeting and said that when I inherited the old BTEC squad, I had Martin Ericsson running centre mid.
Right,
And
Martin
from
Ericsson.
that point on, his name has just been absolute mud.
He doesn't want him. I want him. I paid 3.5 million for him. I never fucking got him.
Do you actually want him though? I mean, is this real?
Yeah.
Do you actually want him?
And
Even though he's every single stat he's got is like 13.
It's not creativity and passing on.
I've just put an official bid in for you to sign him for this season.
I'm willing to let that happen.
Is he not just like Poundland Richie Wellens?
Yeah.
He just went for
I'm willing to let that happen.
Thanks, Dims.
But
he has to play in every game.
I hope that going by current Lennisford form as well, that bid for Ericsson is about 15 million.
I've got money to burn.
One more question just for the moment, Ian, before we bring Duggan into the conversation. Obviously, you lost your title last year. You are changing it up. How confident are you of being able to win it back? Because equally, as much as we say, only Ryan's ever been able to retain a title, there's only ever been one other manager win it a second time. There's not been a manager do it in this iteration of the save. So Greaves is in the same boat as well. It's not easy to win a Super League, is it? So you're going to have to work hard to earn it back.
Yeah, within the 24 that I pick, I've got 15 in a squad who are capable of winning the whole thing. I've definitely got an 11 in there capable of doing it. After 6 games, I'll know whether I'm going to be there or not.
That's brave to say that, because after 6 games, Tato was manager of the year last year, and Bostock were going to win the whole thing at a canter.
Tato's manager of the year every year, right?
3 years. 3 years in a row.
No,
Sorry,
I think you get you do get a feel for it. I think you know when you're about right. If you're having to really change it midstream, then maybe it's not your season. So I need to hit the ground running. I need to turn around the awful form at the end of last season, and yeah, I think I'll know after 6 games.
Okay. Well, I'll ask you after 6 games then how you're getting on.
Yeah, we can win it. We definitely can win it. I've got the tools are there.
Sometimes, whether it's in champ life or real life, you see a manager and he comes across a bit tired, a bit haggard at his position, and sometimes he disappears, and then he gets given another job and he comes back fresh-faced and looking a completely different man. And I'm not sure if it's just the camera angle he's using tonight, but Duggan's back at Dragons. He's looking young. He's looking ripped. He's got arms coming on and everything. Are you happy to be back involved, mate?
What was that, Greaves? What was that?
He's like a dog with 3 dicks, isn't he?
Yeah, mate, loving back. That second season at Gazelles was an absolute shambles. Really didn't at all. And slightly kind of apprehensive that I could be making the same mistake again by gambling on big transfers. But yeah, great to be back. I think if this is to kind of be the last season of this current iteration, which we probably know it is, then it's great to be back with kind of Hopkins and Wooder, where it all began in terms of the kind of involvement with Super League. And I know Hopkins probably, won't mind this kind of speaking for him here, but, his probably involvement in the Super League is coming to a little bit of an end. Wood, I probably very much kind of sees it as a thing that was great in lockdown and hasn't really got the same amount of time to kind of commit to it. So this is probably, the three dicks last ride as a kind of collective, really. So good to get the band back together for one reunion tour, and hopefully keep putting out decent content and having a bit of crack, and hopefully doing something this season as well.
Well, you certainly should do something this year with the transfers you've done. I mean, you kind of alluded to it there, but you've very much gone with the mantra, go big or go home in terms of transfer deals, haven't you?
Yeah, and I think on that, there's a lot to be said for the other managers involved in the deals as well. For them kind of being up for making this like last roll of the dice, last rodeo, whatever you want to call it, for making it interesting. Certainly, I never thought I'd see the day that Ian Edwards would come knocking, offering a Sigalco, because that's how it works. Like, or that Scotty would come and kind of out of the blue after I thought it was dead, kind of just say, fuck it, let's do Boya. And the same one, Macca.
Tato shaking his head. Every player being mentioned.
I am raging.
Never in a million years that I think Macca would put with front. But what I would say on that though is like that's not the kind of underplay how much genuine effort went into transfers this summer for Dragons were awful last year. They scored less than a goal per game. They weren't particularly great at the back. The season where we finished top and won the Shield, we weren't really attacking or expansive. We kind of kept it tight and won 1-0s and 2-0s and kept clean sheets. So this, the first time the Dragons have really ever been blessed with players to go and do it. Certainly the success when we finished top was not about the attacking players. It was about being solid at the back and kind of staying in games for as long as we could. Best defensive record in the league, joint with Greavesy that season, which is massive testament to how we did. This season is going to look totally different. We're going totally the other way. We'll kind of see what comes off. Really, there's a couple of little signings that I didn't quite get over the line. I want a couple of little romance signings in there. So I pestered Tato for Constantinu for absolutely ages, just purely on the fact that he was the striker when we did well that season. But I've ended up with Maxim. So we'll. So cheers Tato for not shaking on that, because Sigalco wouldn't have happened if we chuck on Constantinu. So that's as much yours as it is mine, mate. All right.
And you missed out on Richie Wellens in the auction because he went for big money to Devils.
Yeah. Do you know what? Some things aren't meant to be. You know what I mean? Some things aren't meant to be. All good things must come to an end, mate.
So sorry, Fyfie, can I just interject though? In terms of big transfers and people partying, I know there's an element of it's last season, last dance, etc. But I feel Ian at Haggis needs a little bit of a shout out, because the amount of shit we gave him over the Vieira deal and he ended up being better than he previously was. I think that's made a lot of people, myself included, think you don't need a super stellar name to build your team around. You can actually do things a little bit differently. So that for me, last season or not, it was more that perspective made it a lot easier to part with her on than it being the last season, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely does.
So shout out to Ian Campbell for that one.
Yeah, I talked to Ian a lot when we built up that deal, because he kind of knew he was going to get some shit for losing Vieira, but he knew what he was getting, and I knew what I was losing. And I mean, Samuel, I know everyone talks about the tackles that Jeremy's makes and all that, but Walter Samuel's huge. He's a fantastic player, and he's probably the one out of those two that I regret losing.
Mm-hmm.
Losing the most out of the pair of them. And yeah, he was fully aware of the flack that he was going to get, but he knew he was making a good deal. So yeah, fair play, good shout out, and fair play to Ian. Yeah.
Well, it's certainly been an interesting start hearing all of your opinions on your own teams. I think we should maybe delve into a bit of breaking Super League news, maybe. And would everyone like to see their fixture lists for the season? I think that would be a nice place to start. And
it's going to be Colchester first game, isn't it? Macca's going to have to start Sutton in the first game of the season.
With pleasure, if he's not injured.
So I've got the opening fixtures here, so I will just do a share screen so you can all see this. And so hopefully that's all on your screens now. So we have got Astor Athletics starting at home to Locomotive Boston, Bostock Stanley at home to Devils, Dragons at home to Ledisford, Fulchester Halls, Gazelles, Dudley, Haggis, Churchtown, Sloths, Northern Burn. So Greavesy, you appear first on my screen. Your thoughts on starting away at Astor?
Well, I've got to play Roma about 95 times now, haven't I? Organise all of the friendlies in the space of a week, so they've got no fit players, so I'll smash them 10-0.
And don't forget to add manager, Greaves. Make sure you pull the keeper out.
Yeah, and make sure the whip wobbed for any pitches.
Yeah, Pellizzoli's a left back. Remember that.
Yeah.
Macca, so you've got Halls at home. Difficult start.
Yeah, Hulls are a bit of a bogey team with us. They seem to draw when I'm at home, and I always get like battered away. So that'll be an interesting one in the Sexy Beard derby. But we'll see how we go.
Tato, your new look Ledisford starting away at Dragons. So 2 new managers going head to head.
Yeah, delighted with that. That's a good start, that one. I like it. I think away is often was stronger than at home last year, and I don't know if Duggan will have exactly the right setup by game 1. So it's possibly might be a good time to play him, or just get him out of the way early.
What's your thoughts on it, Duggan?
Yeah, I think it's a good little test for 2 teams who, exceeded, just kind of fell below expectations last season. I think, I say to Steve Dimble all the time when we've talked about this in previous seasons, I think you've got to give yourself those first 5 games to, as Tato alluded to there, to kind of find what clicks and find what works. Dimble made a good comment the other week, which is that you can have all the signings in the world, but they don't work on, they might look great on paper, but actually once they get into the actual mechanics of the game engine, then you get found out in the first kind of 5 games or so. Mm-hmm. I think knowing Tato and kind of knowing us where we are now compared to where we were a couple of seasons back, if either of us will get beat, we're not going to lose our heads too much that first game of the season.
Ian, you start away at Hodgie's new look Sloths. Now he's been very, very busy rebuilding this squad. So I suppose you're going into it not really knowing how they're going to line up. You might have an idea because on his tactics, because Hodgie tends to stick to 1 or 2 kind of ways of playing, but he could play any sort of assembly of 11 players, couldn't he?
I think you've got that spot on. I mean, I've been doing this with Hodgie for long enough now to know roughly what he's going to be trying to shape up like. But he is going to be putting a lot of new pieces of a jigsaw together first game up, and I'm a little bit like Tato. I mean, I probably, if you ask me, do I want a home game or an away game first, I'd take an away game. I probably wouldn't have chose Sloths first, but it's not a bad one. So I'm reasonably happy with that. It helps me kind of probably focus just on what we want to do, as opposed to having to worry about what Hodgie is going to do, because there is that element of the unknown. I'll take that out of the equation and, see who turns up for first day of the season in good shape, make sure everyone's fit. And I kind of know what I want to do now. So yeah, as long as everyone turns up, without a red square next to their name, I think we're happy.
Okay. Dimble, away to Haggis first game. Happy with that?
Well, a terrible record against Haggis, even though they're one of the perennial 9th or 10th in the leagues. I don't think I've beat them yet. So it's a tough one for me. But similar to what Ian just said, I'm going to worry about myself more this season, to start with at least. I've been one that's kind of planned for what the other person's doing a lot. So now I've got a squad I'm happy with. I've got 20 odd players that I can kind of trust. I think I can anyway. I'm going to try and set up in a way that suits us and not really worry about Haggis too much and see what happens.
Okay. And Steve, the title defence begins away at the team that finished bottom of the table last season. So are you confident of getting off to a good start?
I mean, if you're looking at a game and you're looking at previous seasons, maybe we have a great record against Gazelles, full stop. I think before Duggan actually left the Gazelles, we played them at home and lost 3-2 last season, and we absolutely battered them, but they had 3 shots on target. And his keeper still only got 6 from it, I think, that game. Obviously, Martin's made some transfers. It's difficult to think where Martin's is going to be, what he's going to play. And I was obviously he went from his little forward back to going a bit wild and going a bit more wild. And I'm sure making his transfers, he'll be a bit more settled. But listen, if you're coming in as champions and you're playing the team that finished bottom the season before, you've got to be confident of at least getting off to a decent start and getting a result.
No, absolutely. Are you interested in seeing your sort of first couple of fixtures? A couple of you there said about like first 5 games. Do you want me to skip forward, and do you want me to keep it on this screen, or do you want me to do it team by team?
This one.
Okay, so round 2 then sees so we've got Dimbles Churchtown at home to Bostock, Fulchester at home to Astor, Halls at home to Sloths, Leddersford, Dudley Hill, Loco versus Gazelles, Northern Burn against Haggis, and Devils versus Dragons. So Devils second up, Duggan.
Yeah, still haven't beat them this week as Dragons.
No, well, no, Dragons have beaten them now.
Oh, have they? Yeah.
Yeah, they got a result last year because Hodgie laughed at me because I always bring it up, and he finally lost to them.
Nice. Good. Let's make it another one then.
But they're generally entertaining games. There's normally a lot of goals in those fixtures.
Yeah, and again, it's hard to predict what Rob's going to do.
Well, I know you were particularly excited when that managerial swap got mentioned as to, you know, a throwback to the swashbuckling Devils, and you know, he could even knock any scoring records I had well out the window.
Yeah, and does it with like strange tactics. You know, he doesn't. I don't think I've. You know, I think I can count on one hand when I've seen him do the standard 2-7-1 or the burn formation. So you know, that's why it's always interesting to see what he's going to pull out the bag.
No, absolutely. Game week 3, then we've got Astor Halls, Bostock Fulchester. Should be an interesting game. Dragons at home to Loco, Dudley Churchtown, always a game that we look forward to watching. Gazelles versus Northern Burn, Haggis versus Leddersford, and Sloths versus Devils. We skip forward to game week 4, Churchtown Fulchester. Again, another interesting tactical battle. Dudley at home to Haggis. Halls Bostock could be a cracking game. Leddersford Gazelles, Boston Sloths, Burn versus Dragons, and Devils Astor. And then game week 5 at the end of October, Astor Bostock, Dragons Halls, Dudley Burn, Gazelles Devils, Haggis Boston, Leddersford Churchtown, and Sloths Fulchester. Before we show anything else from the in-game footage, you've all had a chance there to see your first 5. Anyone particularly happy or particularly concerned that they'll get off to a bad start? I can see Greavesy, you straight away put your hand up. You happy with your first 5 there?
Yeah, I'll do the Wood prediction. 6 points in the first 3 games. I'll be sitting pretty playing with the penis.
Wait, did you just say 6 points from the first 3 games?
Yeah.
No, that wasn't Wood's prediction. He was going to have 9 from 3 and be top of the league.
Well, I'll have 9 from 3 then.
9 from the first 3.
I'll have 7 from the first 3 games.
7 from the first 3 is your prediction. Macca, you also put your hand up quite quick. Are you confident with your opening fixtures?
No, I actually put it up when you said, is anyone worried?
Okay.
That's a tough opening 5, that. I could genuinely see me only having 4 points max with that. That's a tough run, especially whilst I'm trying to work out how I shoe on these players in. So
let's have a look specifically at those 5 again for you then. So it was Halls at home. So you start with 2 home games and then 3 away games.
Halls I never beat. Alpha cheat. Scott's always a tough game. Dimble's on the rise. Sloths under Rob were always a bit of a bogey team for me. I'd either beat them 1-0 or get battered 5-0. So that's a tough one. And then, all right, there's a bit of a stretch that could be deemed more favourable given my track record against those teams. But those opening 10 games it's not the preferred 10, is it?
No, absolutely. And it's odd to see a team playing 3 away games in a row as well.
Yeah, but I mean, after 6 games, I've done 3 home, 3 away, so it doesn't really matter. And again, my team's gone through both sides of the coin of, I've had that impeccable home form a few years back to then having brilliant away form whenever it was. So it almost doesn't matter anymore at this point in time, I think.
So just loaded up the loco fixtures there now that the screen share's back on Greavesy. You said you're going to have 7 from the first 3. I'm presuming, I'm guessing your thoughts here is wins against Astor and Gazelles and maybe a point against Dragons.
Yeah, 2 goals in 3 games.
Okay, and then you've got Sloths and I mean, game week 5 is the one we're all really looking forward to, and I believe as I say that, Mr. Campbell has also joined the panel. Good evening, sir.
How you doing, mate? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you fine, mate. Good to have you with us.
Excellent, thank you. Have gone eventually. How's everybody?
We're all very well, thank you. We're just discussing the opening fixtures of the new season. Let me bring yours up so you can see them. So you start at home to Churchtown, then you travel to Burn, home to Tato's Leddersford, away to champions Dudley Hill, and then we were just saying game week 5, the big one, home to Locomotive Boston. Happy with that 5, or is that a difficult looking 5?
That's a tricky start, I've got to say. Kicking off at home is maybe good, but Churchtown have been pretty on fire recently, have they? So it's a tricky start. Then Burn away, aye.
Even your fixtures are laughing at you, Campbell.
They are. I know it's tricky, but no, I just can't wait to get going again. It seems like fucking ages, but no, I'm really looking forward to it.
I'll look forward to making you be bottom after game 5, mate.
Let's bring the champ in then. So Steve, you're doing a reverse Macca. You've got 2 away games and then 3 at home. I mean, Burn are in there, Churchtown are in there. It's not an awful start, but it's not the easiest either, potentially.
No, I mean, there's no easy game.
I was going to say, you're going to throw out the old cliche, there's no easy games, aren't you?
We've all got some of the best players on the game, haven't we? But it's quite favourable. Now our own form last season finally turned the corner. I think that contributed massively towards us doing all right. But actually, the fact that we were only second at Devils in his own form, but we were second at Devils in everything throughout the league season, and it's never been known with our own form. So I mean, we'll take it. It looks all right. I don't think I'm not too concerned with not having some points on board. Anyway.
Okay. Next up on my screen, Mr. Edwards. So as we said, away to Sloths. You don't really know what you're going to get from them yet. And then home to Haggis, away to Gazelles, home to Dragons, away to Dudley. I mean, that sort of Dragons, Dudley, that bit there, I suppose, looks quite difficult. But with a team as strong as yours, no disrespect to the other sides, but you're probably thinking you could have 7, if not 9 from the first 3.
I'm happy with that, mate, in all honesty. As I mentioned earlier on, knowing where we are after 6 games, I think that bears out. I think, yes, opener is a bit of an unknown, but not totally unhappy with it. Games 4, 2 to 5, 2 to 4 give us a chance to get some momentum. I think we're probably might even be a little bit better away from home against Dudley Hill than we are at home to them. And then Locomotive's a sticky one away from home. But yeah, I think a chance to build something at the start of the season. I can't complain about any of that, in all honesty.
Excellent. Dimble, your turn then. So as we said, Haggis away to start, and then Bostock at home, Dudley away, Fulchester home, Leddersford away. Decent start for you as well?
I think I've got a chance in all those games, but I think the first 4, I've got terrible records against all 4 of them. So
yeah, but you were
actually
smashing
first
your
5.
terrible records all over the shop last
Yeah, but
season.
this is new Churchtown, isn't it? So at least I've given myself a chance these days. But yeah, look at that first 5 games. I'll be happy with 6 points after 5 games. I think.
I think that's the hardest start we've seen so far. Fyfie Dimble's there, mate.
Do you?
Yeah.
Okay. That's why do you think that? Before we move on to Tato's Leddersford start.
So if you just hop back if you can.
Churchtown.
So he's got Haggis. It will be an unknown quantity with the business that Campbell's done. Bostock, who are always absolutely solid and don't concede many. Dudley, reigning champion. Macca, who's probably going to go back to how Fulchester used to play. And no disrespect, but just like kind of Dragons last season, Churchtown on one of those, or kind of a couple of seasons ago, Churchtown, the way that Dimble tried to build that season was to be tight and kind of nick games. And it's about whether he's got the firepower this season to go toe-to-toe with the likes of Macca. And then Leddersford, you flip a coin on that game. They're probably 2 sides that are very, very similar. I think that's the hardest start we've seen so far relative to the position of the actual club itself.
That's very interesting points that you make there. So Tato, your new club then, Dragons away, Dudley at home, Haggis away, Gazelles at home, Churchtown at home. What are you thinking in terms of a start? Confident?
I think the first 2 games are the 2 teams that are probably predicted to finish the league within the top 2 or 3. I'm looking at transfers in last season, but I don't know. I think this game is too much of a lottery. I think all teams lost, I think, about 7 games, by Devils about 7 games last season in the league. So I don't particularly fear anybody, because anybody can beat anyone. It's that sort of game. So
see, that's the more confident Tato we've been looking for. I don't fear anybody.
It's nothing to do with my team and Leddersford. I just think the game just throws it up. Who's rubbish in the league? You say Gazelles are rubbish. Apart from that, there's no one who's rubbish. So there's no easy games.
After.
Yeah, we're only like 9 days away from booing his own team anyway. So
I boo everyone, mate. I've always booed my own team, win or not.
I mean, you said that the Churchtown start looks hard. I would argue that the Dragons start possibly looks the hardest we've seen. Leddersford at home, Devils away, Loco at home, Burn away, and then Halls at home. That's a very tough start. I mean, you've probably got three of my predicted top 4 there in your first 5.
Cheers, mate.
Also, lol at 4 away games as you head into December on the game. That is absurd.
Yeah. Decent amounts have got at least, that's a big 10th, 14th and 17th. That's a pretty brutal 3 away games inside.
In a week.
That's
the
pretty
game
hard.
engine doing shove you to sell your ass, isn't it?
Assuming you scroll down, it's not 5 on the trot.
Just scroll down there, Fyfie, see what that's not.
But then, just a small matter of Burn sound.
Yeah. I think, I do think those are a tough 5. I think you could flip a coin on who wins out with Leddersford and Dragons. Devils should beat we should beat Logo. We've got a decent record against Burn, but they should probably beat we. And then again, you flip a coin on Halls, Dragons, and see who comes out. So again, just to echo kind of what Tato said, and also what kind of Dimble had alluded to earlier, we'll have, without doubt, the best 11 that Dragons have ever had in the Super League this season. What the AI does, what the game engine does, is a flip of a coin.
Okay. Let's talk about some of the changes for this final season of this save then. So the big talking point is the fact that we've got a number of new managers stroke swapped managers. So it started with Tato and Alf swapping places. So as we alluded, Tato's now at Leddersford, Alf returning to Astor. Then Duggan was announced as the new boss at Dragons, with Jamie moving upstairs, and then the big change with that we've alluded to a couple of times, Rob leaving Sloths and going to Devils, and Hodgie going vice versa. Anyone want to pass comment on any of these managerial changes, particularly those who weren't involved in them?
Yeah, I want to see Hodgie finish in the playoffs and do nothing, so he can be the Neil Warnock. The Super League. Always manage to get a team up there, but never do anything when he gets up there.
Always the
Takes half his
bribe.
players' appearance fees off them as well.
Maka, did any of the managerial changes surprise you?
Do you know what? No, not really. Alf always loves being his own team. I can sort of relate to that. Hodgie openly doesn't really give a fuck, does he? He just likes getting his hands on something and having a bit of a challenge. So again, I'm surprised he swapped with me. Oh, Rob. I mean, who wouldn't take the chance to join Devils? I wouldn't sell out. Not like Rob. Rob's a sellout. That's the equivalent of him going making chicken in Nando's professionally. But that's fine. If Rob wants to sell out, that's fine. In fact, come to think of it, Rob is probably the only reprobate that would have sold out, really. So I think that tells you everything you need to know about the man.
It is. It's just summed up. It's the quality of the man. He jumped.
Yeah, it's a shame, really. Absolute pond scum, absolute, gutter worms. Just
he was low in my estimations to begin with, and then this happened.
No, I always had a lot of time for Rob. I always thought he was carefree, but beneath it all, he's sold out. He sold out as a corporate shill.
And scandalously late as well.
Yeah, do you know? I'm just little bit disappointed he didn't come and ask me for my job, because really, that's the proper sellout, isn't it? That's where you really come and make moves up in the C-suite. You don't go and work at Nando's. You come and work at, like Longclume or Adam Reed at the French. If you're coming up north, you go at some decent restaurants. But Rob wouldn't know about that, would he? The absolute peasant. You can play it being the C-suite with Devils and Penzra all you want. It ain't gonna fucking happen. They're finishing 7th. Fuck them.
It's worth saying, as much as Hodgie's already widely regarded as the Devils' best ever manager, he's certainly not the Devils' most successful ever manager. Ian, your thoughts on these managerial changes?
I don't get it. I don't get it at all. Jumping ship. I mean, if you jump, I don't know. I go a step further than Maka. In all honesty, I think
Maka didn't go far enough in his character.
I mean, if you're moving on, you've in one way or another you've fucked up, haven't you? And you've either took your squad to oblivion, and it's not a patch on what you inherited, or you've inherited a side that's just won the league, and then you've took it on and you haven't won the league. Yeah, you might have won 10 games on the trot or 12 games on the trot, but we've talked Moneyball at the start of the episode here, and to quote that movie again, if you lose the last game of the season, no one gives a shit. So, I can see why people would move on. I wouldn't hand the reins over on this save to anyone for my team. My team's my team. So, yeah. The timing of the changing around, I mean, I was quite fortunate that it didn't affect any of my deals. I mean, I just put a couple of daft tweets out there saying that we'll stick with what we've got, and a couple of people
panic like fuck.
A couple of people panicked a little bit.
I mean, ironically, right? Sloths have got fuck all to deal with. Like, who would you genuinely take from that squad? I mean, and it's probably a testament to Rob as a manager of that team, that he makes them quite entertaining. But ultimately, most of those players are shit, right?
I took Undai.
At the Devil, all right, they've got one or two, but Undai's 34 on the game, 45 in real life at this point. You look at
30.
Devils as well. If you sell them a player, you're only making them a bit better. They have got kind of the perfect complementary squad for each other. So there's not really much transfer business to do there, which is why I'm surprised Rob's been as active as he was.
Well, yeah, but let's be honest. So in terms of activity, he's been active in the auction just to be entertaining with £11 million for Ricardo Gardner, but he hasn't done anything in the way of your normal transfers, has he?
All right, well, maybe he's not as much of a sellout, and he's actually a secret socialist pumping that money down, trickle down economics. Then, to be fair to him, 11 mil for Ricardo Gardner's a fucking joke, quite frankly.
I think
that's disgusting.
And what was it? 12 million for Wellens?
Jesus Christ!
12 million for Thomason as well.
12 million for Thomason, who the fans were ecstatic at the signing of.
Madness.
I think Fyfie. I think I totally get where Ian's coming from in terms of like your team and all that sort of stuff, and I'll back that because looking back, I probably wouldn't have left Dragons in the first place. But what I would say is that in terms of the Hodgie with Sloths and Alf going back to Asta and Tato now having a squad that is miles better than he's ever had to graft with. The three Dicks coming back together at Dragons, it gives a really interesting kind of narrative to it all, and we all like to pretend that there's more than just a flashing spreadsheet, and it's things like this that make it as close to real life as any dickheads like us are ever going to get. Bar Tato.
Thank you. I was going to mention that.
So yeah, I knew you were going to. I think the fact that we're talking about it and the fact that it does give these little kind of thread lines of narrative and stuff, for me it makes it all the more interesting, and I would like to think that anyone on kind of the periphery of the league would probably find it more interesting as well, but totally get where the likes of Ian and Mac are coming from. Your team.
Don't get me wrong, Doug, and I love it that it's happening. It's just not happening at my club.
Yeah,
absolutely. I would second that. I feel like the whole sort of persona of Fulchester and whatever else is meant to be, sort of me with a volume turned up to 11 kind of thing. So in that case, like Devils and Rob, like Rob's always had like an absurd sort of thing with his team, right? We know this. He's brilliant. All my joking aside on the previous few minutes, but I don't feel like. I mean, aside from giving Sloths some sort of Iraqi leader as a picture post, I don't understand how the caricature of Rob Marshall is going to translate into that team, because that team is all about just Emil and Penza doing to the league what many a man of his stature has done to women in the adult industry over the years.
I'm going to bring Ian Campbell in on this discussion point in a minute, but given what you, both you, Macca, and you, Ian, have said, I appreciate you would not hand the reins over to anybody on this save. Completely fine. But what I would ask is, of all of the managers that have been in the Super League, if you were to do your Alex Ferguson bit and move upstairs to become a non-executive director, and you got to hand pick your replacement, who would be your David Moyes of the Super League? Macca, I'll ask you first.
Do you know? I think I've spoken.
Yeah,
do you know what? I've spoken about this before. I have often tipped Duggan to do it if he was going to stick around in the community longer than me. So we'll probably go for either Duggan or Yen.
He's left. He's like, no, fuck that. I'm not getting involved with that.
I don't know. I just feel I'd go for Duggan or Jens, because we're sort of broadly similar looking to a degree, like haircuts and beards. And I think we all like a bit of the quaff. So
yeah, I think Duggan left if I can send you a DM. I think that's what we did.
Or nudes.
And Ian, who would you pick as your successor? Who has that Northern Burn feel?
If I was going to pick one, I'd probably take Greavesy. In all honesty, I like that.
Everyone's face, they're like, "Oh no, making Northern Burn that defensive."
Genius! It makes Ian look good.
We don't score a lot, but we don't lose a lot. I think. I mean, I get this whole, and I know I can see kind of it bent that pushing that Alex Ferguson Moyes narrative in the
into the dark
in the kind of Fyfie Hodgie scheme of things.
I never picked my successor.
But I think if we're looking for a bit of consistency, yeah, I'd take Greavesy and be quite happy and be as happy as I possibly could be with picking anyone. Yeah,
it's an interesting point as well, because Greaves has actually had Ed Woodward doing his transfer deals for the last 4 seasons. So
I sacked him before this one.
I'd have to stay as director of football.
Dimble, he's had Stevie Wonder doing them this season. Special guest.
I quite like his deals this summer. I'm going to defend him on that point. I think maybe. I don't know. We'll see how it goes.
Ian C, let's bring you into the chat then. And on the subject of managerial swaps, was there any that surprised you, or like Doug, are you excited for what it, how it freshens up the league for this season?
I think Hodgie's played a wee bit of a sneaky blinder there, because the business I've seen he's done, there's going to be a pretty much totally different starting 11. And for where he was, Sloths, they were maybe a wee bit exciting. They scored loads, but they let in loads. So I think he can't really lose, because Devils, they're going to be up their favourites for the title. Rob, he's basically just going to keep the same starting 11. He's brought in fucking stupid players just to, because it's Rob type thing, eh? But I definitely think Hodgie is sneaky. I think he'll be there or thereabouts. I like his signings. In regards to us managerial, it would anybody but Greavesy, I think. That would actually break my heart if it was to get anywhere near us.
Everyone but
Anybody
Greaves is
but
managing
Greaves.
this on a temporary
Everybody.
basis, aren't they?
Do you know what,
What's
Fyfie?
that?
Bit of an idea for you. Sorry to interrupt them. Bit of an idea for you, Fyfie, for Christmas festivities. On that separate save you've got, we do a nice little round robin, and you can draw out a team and a manager and watch everyone get fucking mortified at what happens on that separate.
You know what? That's not a bad shout. I might actually. I'll note that one down in my super.
Just as a bit of Christmas fun. But what you could do is the save we're using, save a separate copy of that. And then that'd be a bit of banter as well, wouldn't it? Because it'd have all the up-to-form players and all that
players.
kind of
Yeah. No, absolutely. I like that. We'll certainly be noting that one down.
Sorry, Dimble. I cut you off there, Dimble.
I was just saying, Campbell's had pretty much most of the league managing this Haggis team at some point anyway. So.
Very true.
A real community club.
I guess. Sorry, Fyfie.
No, carry on.
Hang on, what if Hodgie's like Thanos and he's getting out fucking clubs across his hands, like managing them all in playoffs?
Sorry, Ian, you wanted to make another point.
I can't actually remember what I was going to say, Fyfie. I think it was just, if I was to hand over the reins, I'd probably have to totally step back, because Haggis are like my baby now. This is I think I could, like, full control, you know what I mean? Just I'd find it difficult, I think. I know I've had interims and that, but I think deep down I couldn't let go fully.
And what exactly is Mr. Swan's role this season?
He is our technical analyst and performance director.
Okay.
He's basically an assistant. He's going to be putting out some more.
God for giving him this really good job title. He's basically an assistant.
Basically,
Well, what are you expecting, Fyfie?
He's he's going to be putting like videos and stuff. I'm useless with that side of things. So keep an eye out for. I think he's working on something at the moment, actually. Just keep an eye out for wee videos and stuff like that. We're going to wait and see if the season pans out, and we'll just make it a bit more interesting. Huh?
Okay, looking forward to it. One of the other new things for this coming season was the allowance that sort of Swemp-esque will be between 60 and 70 minutes, allowing a second half sub and a tactical move around. And I've been asked by a couple of you for sort of a bit more in-depth detail on what will be allowed. So we're not having it where you can change full tactic files. There'll be no player or team instructions being changed. We won't be going in-depth into the game like that. I will allow sort of up to 2 players to be moved around, whether you move a defender more further forward or you bring someone back to be more defensive. So that will be allowed. And, you know, if you move players, I will then let you sort of straighten out so that they're central, etc. You can add or remove arrows, that sort of thing's fine. But it'll be important to see, especially over the first few games, how it pans out, because we don't want to take away from the enjoyment if it takes an absolute age for managers to be sending their messages through. So, you know, it just needs to be clear that try and do it in one message, just try and make it clear. Don't be sending like 3 messages so that I see one do it and then carry on with the game and then another one pops through. But hopefully over the course of the last season or 2, people have said, Super League's really good, but I wish we could do this to be more involved. I'm hoping this is my way of saying, well, here you go. Here's another bit of involvement for you. As long as it's used responsibly, I hope it adds to the fun for you. But is that clear, Dimble? Like what is and isn't allowed?
Yeah. Minutes have been taken. I will share.
So striker to DMC will be quite a...
Striker to DMC, I imagine, will be popular at Loco, yeah.
Just to clarify on that, so say I make a move and then Greavesy puts his striker to DMC, can I then counter that, or are we just drawing a line at one goes, then the other goes, just so we're clear on that?
So what I will probably say is the home team will go first, basically, generally speaking. The home team will go first. So if I just, what have I got here? Let me do a share screen on this. I think this was the fake tactic used in the friendly. This is just on the Asta screen, which I hope you can all see. So say this was being played on 70 minutes. If you wanted to, I would allow for something a bit more like this to happen if you wanted, and you could add arrows. You could, again, move him back. You can take these arrows off, that kind of thing. But what I wouldn't allow is to go into here and start loading up various formations from here and then moving instructions around. Is that, sort of clear enough?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, cool. Thanks for that.
So you've probably already explained that, Fyfie, but I kind of switched off a bit. Is the home team gets to choose what they want to do on certain minutes, then the away team, or the away team, then the home team?
Unless for any reason I lose my mind, the home team will always go first.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Regardless of what the result is at that time, regardless of what's going on. Equally, if you get a red card at any point, I will allow the tactical change at that point as well. Because, we're already on the tactics screen.
For me personally, I mean, it doesn't really bother me that much. I pick my team.
Well, you don't even make substitutions, Ian, so you won't be using it at all.
I try and course to 90 minutes where I can. My only feeling was, I don't know whether someone like Steve might agree with me here. What always bothered me was you get a red card against you and the opponents seem to dig in. So if the opponents get someone sent off after 30 minutes, are you allowed, and they make a change after 30 minutes, are you allowed to
It's a good question, and I can see why you're asking it. I'll be honest, I hadn't really considered that. But yes, if I'm allowing one team to make a tactics change, I will allow the other. But
that's the only time I probably want to make a change.
I'm more than happy to sort of let all the managers have as much in-game play as I can physically do. The important thing for me, and I believe most managers will be respectful and responsible of it, is just don't take an absolute age giving the instructions. B, make sure that the instructions are clear. Particularly, if you're on co-coms, it's really easy. But for I generally have one or two people on comms per thing. So
can we add in that if your team is playing, only comment what substitutes you want? Because the amount of times you're watching a game and people comment a bit of banter and it's half time and then you end up playing 20 minutes for a sub.
I don't want to restrict and tell people what they can and can't talk about. That's the one thing I don't want to do. But it's just a case of, if it's your game...
Not Russia, Greavesy.
If it's your game, just realise if you want to make any changes, you need to be, fairly prompt and particularly accurate. Because the last thing you want to do is either send me 5 messages and I do the wrong thing and then you blame me for the result going wrong, or you take an age writing a text about this big when it only really needed to be 2 sentences.
I think Swamp and AFCON have shown that people can be very, very involved during the game, and the delay is massively, 10, 15 seconds. That is it. Exactly. It's like all these people worried about it's going to slow it down. It really doesn't. And if you think it does, go back and watch a Swamp or go and watch an AFCON. It doesn't make a difference at all.
Just cut a couple of minutes out of the half-time analysis. That's all you need to do, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say that, Dimble, but also Fyfie, to add a bit of banter to it, set the countdown clock going so that people have got 30 seconds. When they acknowledge the clock, they've got 30 seconds to tell you what they need doing.
Well, maybe it might add a bit of banter having a countdown clock in the corner. We'll see, but hopefully
just do that for Alf, I think.
Yeah.
Scottish internet, Ian's fucked.
Can I?
He'll understand the countdown reference as well, which is good.
Is there any more questions on that new thing for this season?
Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, I can now. Yeah.
Can I just ask, if the home team decide not to make a change at 60, they've then kind of surrendered their ability to change, so you don't get Greavesy saying, I'm the home team, I'm not going to make a change, I'm going to wait for the away team to make a change, and then actually, Fyfie, I want to...
So I will stop the game as close as I can, somewhere between 60 and 70. If you choose not to do anything, that's your time up. You can't, if Greavesy's at home if it's Loco v Dragons and he says, and I stop the game on 65 and he says, I don't want to do anything, and then you make a change, he can then say, can you stop it at 70 so I can do it again? No.
Yeah, sweet. Just on the same kind of point then, just so I'm writing it down. The red card, who gets to change first? The person who's got the red card gets to change
team
first.
the team who has the red card will change first.
Sweet. Yeah, cool.
Can I suggest perhaps doing some friendlies, even using the reserves and just trialing these rules out? Maybe offline.
Well, that was kind
doesn't have
of
to be on
why I
YouTube or
did.
something.
That was kind of the hope with the end of season friendlies and the special friendlies, but no one wanted to change their formations.
Right. Okay.
I kind of hoped people would make use of the new rules and try some stuff out. But
Well,
they
we
didn't
could just enforce it. If the friendlies between reserve teams, for example, we won't give a fuck. We'll just see how it goes, I guess. We could always do that offline if it works. Fyfie, just maybe one batch and try it. Just a suggestion. If it's going to be a fact, did it?
What I can do.
When I watched it last night, I was getting beat up off a poet virtually.
It did work. Like it was all right.
Where is Dan?
Where is what?
Dan.
Where is he?
Yeah.
He's
Dan the large equine.
No, the other Dan. Macca, the other new Dan. Better Dan.
I forgot.
New Dan.
I forgot.
Yeah.
Who's new Dan?
He would be. He's a shout for a manager's job. I think Dan. He was really good last night.
On a scale of 1 to Macca, how C-suite is he? What are we saying?
Apparently he's really handsome, so probably better than the C-suite.
yeah.
B-suite, if anything.
From Cambridge as well.
so for what it's worth,
easy there, King Edward.
It's a very good point. Dan was very good value. Dan Haynes was very good value last night on comms. He has been watching the Super League for about a season and a half now. He's slowly starting
with a dodgy voice.
Well, if you claim he's got a dodgy voice, I thought he came across quite elegant.
Mega horse with the voice.
Yeah, he was good.
And he actually applied for 2 Super League positions last year, which were given to obviously Martin and Alf at the time. He did apply for Gazelles and he did apply for Asta. Eh?
He must be terrible. Okay.
But no, he's very interested in getting involved in the Super League should a position come available.
How about the chairman's position? Is he interested in that?
You'd have to ask him. I don't necessarily think the streaming element is what he's interested in.
Fair enough. I understand that.
But
no, in the queue, isn't he? Even before the start of the season.
But no, we spoke again after the show last night went off air, and he's very interested in staying involved in the chat and coming on for co-coms during the course of the competitive season. He very much enjoyed what the managers did last year, and he's looking forward to seeing what happens this year. The only negative for most of you, and obviously as a chairman, I'm neutral. The only negative is either A, you don't like that he's a Man United fan, or B, he has a Gazelles top.
Ooh.
Do you know how you got to do anything? Some people support horrendous teams in this league. No offense, Duggan. I'm talking about you. So you know how you got to do with it. Fucking hell, Fyfie.
Can I ask? Did he get a Gazelles top like pre Penterson?
Yeah, there would have been. It would have been.
Yeah, he would have got it when all the kits were available.
I think it's more to do with Edward's design than anything else. I don't think he's a Gazelles fan.
That's where Edwards deserves the legend stuff. Like, can we put that top of his trophy tree above the star, all the design work and all the graphics stuff over the years?
Only if he can do it for us. Yeah,
that's truly legendary.
On the table, yeah.
Yeah, put your shirts on the table, lads.
I just love that Steve's just been dying half of this chat. Half of this chat has just been him pissing himself rolling around on his sofa.
Are we wrapping up? Can we show the predictions from Duggan?
Yeah, that's what I was going to do
next.
I'm
on borrowed time here. Go on.
Now, but I just wanted to know: was there any other questions on anything new for this coming season before we go on to the next stuff?
No, it was all superb. Thank you, Fyfie. Well,
a quick Fyfie. That the reason Tato isn't asked about Dan being a Man United fan is obviously because Man United are Everton's first team and Everton are Man United's reserve, so it's basically both the same club.
I'm 62 again, boys.
Really, that's really old banter.
It's not. I'm being genuinely serious.
About 4 years ago, that was true. It's not now. Nobody wants Everton's players now.
Right, let's have a look at some of these graphics.
Sam's is good.
I'll take Donny Van der Beek.
Let's have a look at some of these graphics that Duggan and Swan have put together between them. And the first one I've got here is a couple of you mentioned how important it is to get off to a good start. These are the league tables in the last 4 seasons after 10 games. So if we go back, sorry.
It's really small, on my
Are
screen.
you-
Like,
Are you on a mobile by any chance?
I'm on a phone, mate. I am blind as
Yeah,
a bat. as well,
that'll
so
be why it's
like-
really small, mate. It's because you're looking
Go on,
at
Campbell, a fucking
Small.
Nokia.
You on your Casio?
On my smartwatch, Fyfie. Can you make it bigger?
For those of you on regular size screens and for those watching it on YouTube, you should be able to see this quite clearly. So season 7, we had Leddersford at the top with, and then we had Loco, Devils, Bostock, Fulchester, Gazelles. A season later, Dragons had made their way to the top. Devils were still in there. They'd moved up a place. Sloths had actually made it into top 6. Burn, they weren't in their season 7 either. Loco was still hanging around, and Fulchester maintained their place. Season 9.
Fyfie, where are Haggis in this?
I know, mate. I know. Fucking,
can't see
I
him.
did. I eventually read this. Just move on.
Season
Move
9, Macca went off to a flyer and was top. Then we had Burn, Leddersford, Devils, Loco. Yes,
If
mate.
not to be a pedant, but it's the other way around, mate. So where it says the position 8th, so Dragons says 8th, 1st, 10th, 7th, 6th, 3rd. That's where they were after.
Oh, that's where they finished the season.
No,
I
that's
see.
after 10. So
Yeah.
the white were after 10, and the number on the
Yeah,
left.
the white one's after 10. Yeah, I realise that now. Thanks,
There's
mate.
always one team at least that comes from 8th or below. Like apart from that 3rd season there, season 9, there's always one that comes from the bottom kind of 4, isn't there? At least one.
Yeah, so if I actually try and do this properly now that Duggan's pointed out for me.
It's season 10 now.
So,
1, 2, 3, 4.
Series 7, 5 of the top 6 stayed where they were. Leddersford went from 11th, which was an incredible run, really. Season 8, Sloths were the team, although Dragons coming from 8th to finish 1st was a good run for them as well. I mean, to be fair, Burn were only 7th after 10 games. Fulchester finishing top after being 6th. But Devils were 8th. Season 9 would have been Hodges' first year, wasn't it? If I remember right. And then last year Devils were running away with it at that point, and everyone was saying it was pretty much only going to be them winning it.
Don't mean a thing if you don't get that ring, son.
Hey,
Don't mean a thing if you don't get that ring.
well, exactly. I mean, look at Churchtown and Halls, what they achieved in the
You got-
in the remaining fixtures of that season.
You got the mainstay of all of it is you've got Bostock, but Scott has never won a playoff game.
So has never won a
Season-
playoff
season
game.
Has Scott won a playoff game yet? He always gets knocked out first round.
Season 8, Greaves, he didn't qualify, did he?
No, but when he makes the playoffs, he don't win a game.
Or doesn't win a tie, do you mean?
Yeah. Yeah, he's first round knockout every time.
Season 8, not the year that he kind of reacted a bit to Joe Palmer and kind of sort of went a bit rogue.
He went a bit whiffy.
Yeah, that was top banter, that bit actually. just proving a point.
So the next table is the points per season. Is that come up on your? Well, I won't ask Ian Campbell. Can the rest of you see this table?
I can see that. Fuck, I can see that.
Nice, pretty colours for
Love a
him.
good bit of conditional formatting.
Still pretty depressing.
Can we just look though? So we look at Fulchester. Here we go. Mac, Ryan. All right. Yeah. Okay. Sound.
You've got to get your own soundtrack now, haven't you? Return of the Mac for the next season.
Oh yeah. Oh, the King is back, and we're going to finish 8th.
Well, I mean, Duggan, look at Dragons inconsistency: 20, 44, 24, 34.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah. What? Who fucking knows what we're finishing next season is probably the takeaway.
Algebra would say it'd be 34 again, wouldn't it?
What was that saying? Say that again, man.
So Algebra would say it was like 34 again. Is that right?
Something like that.
If you look, the winners always have between 44 and 46 points.
I mean, Ian Campbell, I'll ask you on the flip side to the point about Dragons. Haggis pretty much consistent: 33, 31, 31, 33. You're always around that same sort of points mark.
Consistently shit, mate. Consistently shit. That's really bad. I've got to, just looking at all these stats, and I can't. I've not really got a leg to stand on saying we're a top club in the league. There's nothing to back that up really. So I think for us this season is fucking the crunch, like. So I'm looking to really go for it this season. Got to change the formation up. So I'm definitely going for the playoffs. I'm changing formation. Looked at the editor for once as well, which I hadn't done position wise. Got the players lined up to play in their actual positions. Cheating, I know. Steve done it, and he won the thing. So, aye, if it's cheating's allowed, I'm going for it.
Well, let's bring Steve in. He's been pretty quiet for a while now, and two teams with contrasting figures here. So Dudley were quite consistent, 30, 27, 29, and then last year shot up to 46. On the flip side, Gazelles were consistent, 40, 37, 38. Last year, just 20.
Yeah, I mean, we've had I think that first season, I think we finished 11th, and then it were 13. I mean, it shows 29 points. I think finishing 13th with 29 points is okay, and not in terms of being okay finishing 13th, but yeah, I mean, obviously, I think it goes to show we finally had a reasonable transfer window for the first time. Instead of being naive, like coming into the league, and you've got your favourite players, you can watch Super League from afar and love it as much as you love it, but still, it takes you a while to settle into realising, as much as you've watched it all before and watched all previous shows, players that actually perform. And I think Odgie were right in what he was saying, we're letting that guy go. He'll get you an 8 or 9 every week, but what else does he contribute? That was my big risk, letting Tomasi go before this season. And it's paid a bit of dividends because we've had some more contributions from Zanetti coming in as part of that deal and blah, blah. And yeah, it shows that anybody can finish anywhere. And if you get a right couple of deals in and get a right couple of little tweaks to your formation, you know, anything's still possible for anybody.
No, it's absolutely true, pal. Absolutely true. Just loading up the next graphic here. So this is positionally how many points after 10 and 26 games each position have. So this shows you sort of where you need to be ballparking. Ian Edwards, as you know, Northern Burn generally quite successful in terms of league position. Does this look kind of familiar to you, that it's all about a good start and building that momentum early? Whereas, as I think it was Dimble was saying, there's normally one team who can claim 5th or 6th with a late run, but really you need to be at it from the off to finish in the top positions.
Yeah, you don't want to be that team that's relying on a late run. I mean, because it could be one of like 4 or 5 teams. I mean, you know, you get a sniff of 3, 4, 5 teams that are going to be there or thereabouts reasonably early on. If teams come across 5 or 6 games, they're doing all right, they stick with it, they keep a decent-ish run going. And if you blip, we all have blips, but if you know your blip can be 2 or 3 games, your blip can be 8 or 9 games, and it's how you handle those. So yeah, it's consistency, it's momentum, it always is. But I mean, you get a feeling for your season surely after half a dozen games. I mean, always for me anyway.
Greasy, we always seem to allude to that sort of 40-point mark to make the playoffs, and the bottom half of that table shows that, you know, the average points for 5th is 40, the average for 6th is 38. But it doesn't sound a lot, but because the Australian League isn't as many games as, say, the Premier League or any of the EFLs, you have got less games to do it in. It makes it that bit harder to get to these numbers, doesn't it?
Yeah, you can, as a team, you can cope with a blip, as Ian says, in the middle of the season, but you can't have a blip at the end or the start. If you get off to a poor start, you're in shit creek without a paddle. And if you have a blip at the end, you're just plummeting and the form table is against you. So you want to that might favour Duggan with having his all away games at Christmas, but it's one of those. It's you want to have everyone's going to have a run of bad games. You don't want to have it at the end. But
And sorry, carry on.
you don't want to be out. You don't want to have them at the start and be chasing so much to get in to begin with. So
Yeah,
it is that pressure at the start of the season. Everyone's facing it, and it's the joys of the Super League. There is only one bad team, well, only two bad teams in the league, and go from there.
there's only two bad teams in the league. Tato, every year.
Being friendly here, I could have said Haggis aren't one of them.
Tato, we've said every year now for probably 3, if not 4 seasons. Oh, this is the tightest the Super League's ever been. It's you just can't call it. Everyone's to a degree is so evenly matched. Anyone can beat anyone. When you see the average points required, there's 2 points between 6th and 5th. There's 2 points between 5th and 4th, and then only 1 point between 4th and 3rd. It kind of you start to get an appreciation for just how tight and how fine margins it is in this league, can't you?
Yeah. I think you do. I think I was when we were always every time on comms, on live on comms, you're saying the average is this, and being somebody who was in the chasing pack last year, for a while, obviously ended up horrendously, but for a long time I was in the chasing pack. You're looking at where you're going to pick up the points, saying I might get 3 there, I might get 3 there. I've only got to get 10 more points, easily done, no problem. 10 more points in 8 games, and then you go on some losing run, and it's over, and you think it's never going to be that average, it's never going to be that. But like you say, looking at the stats, it always does. I think the first thing I've seen there, just to flag up again, that season from Devils is absolutely ridiculous.
The 62
that is
points.
Unbelievably brilliant. That is, that can't be understated, because I don't think that'll happen again.
No.
Because that is the way we play the game now. I'm not saying it's better than it was before, but the way that we manipulate the game engine to play 2 at the back and the stuff that we know now, that is huge. So, I mean, respect to him for that.
No, absolutely.
And in fairness to Hodgie, he's done that before. He's gone on daft runs with worse teams than that before.
He's the most successful manager, isn't he? Because when Swan puts out that big season 7, most points, etc., he is consistent. He's got about 3 of the top 5. So I think moving to slots is...
Yeah, depends how you rate successful, but he's done very well.
Winning games, probably.
Or winning trophies.
No, well, it doesn't... Don't get Duggan started on this one. If he's won the most games out of any managers, then he's the best manager, obviously, over the last 5 years.
That's exactly why I made the point earlier that he is the best manager that Devils ever had, just not the most successful.
He's the best manager the league's ever seen.
He's one of the managers where so occasionally you'll come up against him and you just know you're going to lose.
At least
that doesn't happen very often when you just know you're not winning. And
we'll get to see a real kind of test this year as well.
Definitely, Dumble.
One of the moves, that part of the move makes me really interested. And obviously, seeing what kind of mania happens at the Devils as well.
Like if the slots just turn up and just start spanking people, then everyone just bow down to the lad.
No, absolutely.
No, I'm not.
We have to thank Swan for his work as always, putting those sorts of figures together. And now we come to some of these where Duggan very kindly gathered the information from all the contributing managers. So the first one I've got here on the preseason managers survey, who is your pick to finish bottom after 26 games? Overwhelmingly, Gazelles, 60%. I mean, Devils 19% is more manager-based, I think, than squad-based. Asta 15%, a couple of notable 2% as well. So let's just fly through these with a few of you. So Greavesy, you're first on my screen. Does it surprise you to see Gazelles overwhelming favourites to finish bottom?
No. It's yes, he's bought some okay players in, but he's brought in a potential disruptive influence for when they are playing poorly. And unfortunately, Martin hasn't got the greatest history in the Super League as a manager.
He inherited a dreadful squad as well.
Yeah. But even in previous iterations, he had dreadful squads but played dreadful tactics. So yeah, it's going to be bottom.
Well, let's examine that a bit further. Duggan, obviously you were up close and personal with Gazelles last year. What do you think is the problem within the squad? Because there were times prior, if you go back one season further, people were saying that they were definitely top 6 candidates, if not title contenders, and then all of a sudden, they have what looked like a fairly decent transfer window, and it just goes horribly wrong, and they're bottom of the league.
Yeah, I think. Look, there was some. Certainly, if you look at the graphic that you had before, Gazelles have always been consistently around 40, 30.
The blood's on your hands, Duggan.
Sorry?
The blood's on your hands.
Oh, absolutely, mate. Listen, unlike yourself, who will not admit that you've wrecked Logo, I've got absolutely no shame in saying there was a couple of the players that I brought in that really didn't fire. Vieri probably being the most notable. But if you look at Gazelles kind of prior to that bad season, 40, 37, 38 when I came in, that's kind of where he's been, a bit like Haggis. But there was a little thread going on a couple of weeks back where Martin was kind of talking about transfers he was bringing in and kind of not being happy with inherit and stuff. And Craig Trudgill was kind of chipping in, and I was chipping in. Gazelles have always kind of had, the squad at the start and the squad for the other 2 seasons that looked fairly solid at the back. And obviously with Clivert at the top of that. But the struggle with Gazelles was always that kind of centre midfield creativity, EMCs. They never really scored. Other than the odd game where they turned up and kind of smashed someone, they were never really, kind of entertainers of the league. And I think ultimately in this league, because of the quality of the attack, you've got to be going toe to toe with people to score. There's only really Greavesy who's kind of proven that you can try and do it by drawing every game and rolling the dice in the final. Everybody else kind of banks on those big attacking players, at the MC, creative players at MC, really trying to control the game for you and create chances. Yeah. So yeah, I think the thing that strikes us with Martin is it's almost like he has a very set way he plays the games. You see this on his Twitter feed with his home saves and the teams he likes to be. There was a comment made about painting by numbers when he first came in about not wanting to do 2-7-1. He got battered a few games, and then what does he do? He rolls out 2-7-1. If you kind of beat them, you've got to join them in that. And I'm not sure if kind of he's in that mindset this season. I think there's a couple of players he's brought in, the likes of Ziadorf, who we would all say here, we know doesn't do it in the Super League, but I just get that impression that kind of, he thinks he knows best at times, and it'll be interesting to see if it comes off for him.
Tato, let me ask you, similarly like we just did with Duggan and Gazelles, Asta being ranked as one of the favourites to finish bottom. I mean, I had a good look at their squad for the recent friendly, and I must admit, you don't quite realise just how average by Super League standards it is until you really look into it, do you?
Yeah, the squad in general is definitely average. Alfie's giving it the big ones on Twitter and in my DMs as well, and every comment he can make is saying how crap the squad is, how he's going to be a miracle worker if he does this, that and the other. But he has sold the most effective players that we had last year. Rayad, Scally, he has actually given them all to me. So he's left himself with even a worse team. He doesn't think it is, but he's left himself with even a worse team than he inherited from me. Knowing Alf, he is good with his tactics, and he has an innovative way of playing. Obviously, I expect him to finish in the bottom 2. Yes, it's a bad squad. It was a bad squad when I inherited it. I gave it width. He doesn't like width, so it will continue to be a bad squad.
And Ian C, slightly disappointed to see Haggis in that small cluster of teams there on 2%, or expected?
That doesn't really bother me, but to be honest with you, let's be honest, there's a number of teams that could potentially finish 13th. I mean, I think bottom is probably going to be between Aster and Gazelles. I think Tato was right about the Aster. I think their score's pretty poor. I would have said Sloth potentially, but I think Hodges, he's total had the turnover of players. I think he's going to be able to compete anyway. And just to echo what Tato was saying, if he does date with Sloth, I think we're going to have to sort of doff our caps to them, because I mean, Sloth, they weren't the title challengers, and if he can even get them nearly challenging, I think it'd be a great achievement. What's this next? Is this
So
playoffs?
the next,
Playoffs, right?
Yeah, the next graphic that we sent is the complete opposite. Which team wins the lot via the playoffs? So defending champions Dudley Hill, they get 15%, as do Bostock Stanley, as do Devils. So interestingly, that they were the second favourite team to finish bottom, but also joint second favourites to win the whole lot. But Ian Edwards, is he back? I know he disappeared briefly. Is he back? Yeah, Ian's back. Favourites 25%.
I guess that's a double-edged thing, is it? That kind of, we're fancied not to make top 2, perhaps, but fancied to do well if we get top 6, which I can't disagree with too much.
Will we ever see a situation where a team not finishing top 2 wins it, do you think?
It's tough.
I think, again, it goes back to showing something before you get to those last few games. You need to show that you need to win a couple of games going into it, perhaps, or you need to show signs of life. I think if you stumble into the playoffs, you're probably not winning the thing. If you've got something about you when you get there, then perhaps you have. But then again, the pride that we all have, you look at something like this and you kind of think, well, I want to be finishing top 2, so 25% of people think that I'm finishing 3rd to 6th, maybe. So, do you take much stock in that or not? Maybe not.
So again, Haggis feature in the cluster of Cubs on, in their Gazelles, considering how overwhelming favourites they were to finish bottom there in that cluster, along with the likes of Churchtown, who had a fantastic year last year, and Fulchester, who just missed out. Former champions Loco are there as well. Steve, 15% joint second favourites. Are you happy with that position?
I mean, yeah, it shows that we've got a little bit of support. But then you look at Scott, you look at Rob now in charge of Devils. Everything determines the Devils season on what Rob does in terms of tactics. I mean, I love Scott to bits, talk to him a lot, been out for beers with him, and I think Greaves got a little bit of a point of, he's got to a point if he's got into playoffs and he's not really been able to take it up to that next level. He has massive stints of unreal form and he just seems to lose it off at wrong time. And when you talk to somebody a lot, like I do with most of the lads, you sort of feel for people a bit when it's, I mean, like I say, I've gone from losing nearly every game to where I've been, and I was there promoting Burn to be up there, and yeah, I mean, and it's hard to, it's been done once as backing it up, and I'm not surprised that we're only, if we were even in that, in fairness, but we're gonna have a good go at it. And but I like we said, alluded to at the start, if I finish second this season, I will win it again. Okay,
I like the confidence. One more before we change graphic. Duggan, are you surprised not to see Dragons feature at all on this particular list?
No, because I think people are probably still a little bit unsure as to whether it's going to be Dragons season 1 or Dragons season 2. Do you know whether it's going to be a bit of chaos and a bit of a shambles, or whether it's actually going to be kind of the real deal, really? And again, I think a lot of that comes down to whether the signings that came in, some of which are a little bit risky, kind of hit the ground running, really.
You do, however, feature on the next graphic. You've been tipped as the side that have had the best transfer window. Not really surprising when you consider the names we spoke about earlier.
Yeah, mate. Yeah, I would say it's the happiest I've ever been with a transfer window, and I think it will probably take some beating. But Dimble said in his manager said that the game isn't won on paper, so it's about getting them to tick, and we've certainly seen teams on pre-match screen do worse in game than we probably expect, because tactics and team instructions haven't been bang on.
No, absolutely. And Dimble, you mentioned earlier that you've got a squad of probably a good 20 players now, a core group of 20 that you're happy with and you can trust. Not necessarily reflected in the views from outside the Churchtown camp. I mean, you're in the cluster there of 7% with 5 other teams, but you said obviously you're quite happy with the deals you've done and you're feeling confident going into the season.
The deals I've done aren't really very flashy. But I was in a position where I started scoring goals, so I didn't really need to do too much going forward. So I just added a bit of width, added some backups. So it's a bit too professional, really. I should have done what some of the guys done, had some fun with it. But the one deal I did have lined up, which excited me, fell through with the late manager changes, like I said earlier.
What was it, Dimble?
What was that deal, Dimble?
I had Kewell coming in for MDS and Deisler, and yeah, so I was happy with that one. I think Kewell would have changed the way we played, but it didn't happen. So yeah, I'll move on, and that ended with Rivaldo. So make of that what you will. That's my Kewell replacement, Rivaldo.
I think
so,
I don't really agree with a lot about who's had the best transfer window apart from Dragons. I think I'd have had you and Hodgie up higher up in place of me and Scott, and I think probably even higher up for you even than that if that deal had gone through.
Yeah, I think that one would have made it a bit more kind of noteworthy. As it stands, it was a bit more business-like, and like I say, the signings that Duggan has made on paper they're amazing. So, and that 11 he's kind of got on paper just looks unbelievable. But like you mentioned, you need to get it working, and if he doesn't get it working after a few games, he might start panicking and doing some strange shit. So, yeah, it's the pressure's on Duggan, and with my business, the pressure's not really on me because no one's really bothered about what I've done. No one's really talking about Churchtown.
Oh, I expect big things from you, mate.
Well, you say no one's talking about Churchtown, but while you've just been talking now, I've had the graphic up of the managers were given the opportunity to predict their top 6 in order, which I've just had up on the screen. And again, thanks very much, Duggan, for doing all the analysis on this. He's put together this very helpful little table to show where the averages sort of predict people will end up, and Churchtown in 5th, Dimble.
Yeah, and that surprised me when I saw it. It is very tight in that kind of 8th to 4th range. So that's where I would expect to finish. 8th would be kind of the minimum I'd expect to do, and obviously I'm hoping for 6th. So yeah, it's strange to see myself up there because I think if you'd done this start of last season, I had no doubt that I'd have been 10th or 11th in that, if not worse. So like I say, I overperformed a little bit last season. This season the pressure's on me a little bit, but from my point of view, it's not. So I've had a bit of fun. I could have a bit of fun this season and a bit more kind of. I'm going to be a bit more expansive maybe, and not look to kind of win every game 1-0. I'm kind of moving away from the Mourinho Greavesy school of management this season.
Maka, Dimble said there that sort of mid-range of teams, say from 4th down to probably yourself there in 8th, is very tight. Given I know you had a disappointing end to last season. Given the regularity of your appearances in the playoffs, are you surprised to see you averaging an 8th place finish?
No, I'm not actually, because I think from the outset, people probably looked at, all right, they were in a bit of a bad way last season. They've also sold Veron. Don't know how the new players are going to gel. To be honest, I think that's probably a fair assessment. from all the other managers. Obviously, I want to do much better than that and finish 6th or higher. But to be fair, I think that's probably a fair assessment given what's happened in the past few weeks.
Okay. And Greavesy, these sorts of numbers won't bother you in the slightest, but down in 12th, are you a bit disappointed that there's not a bit more respect on your name?
At Locomotive, we're used to being disrespected. In the past 4 seasons, we've been in the final twice, so it's more than any other team in this league so far. And we'll carry on proving the doubters wrong, and I'll be dishing out humble pie towards the end of the season.
It's not strictly true either, because Devils have been in 2 of the last 3.
Well, yeah, well, I'm the only manager that's done it. You can have your different managers.
Oh, is that what it is?
Different things.
There was one more graphic here, and it was the team predicted to finish top after 26 games. So this couples into the one you were looking at earlier, Ian, and some interesting when you consider some of the other stats we were looking at. So Northern Burn and Devils joint favourites to finish top after 26 games, perhaps not really a surprise there. But Fulchester suddenly make a big appearance, as do Dragons. Gazelles, Loco and Bostock there with 2%. No mention for Dudley Hill at all, the defending champions. Churchtown don't feature on the list. Ian Edwards, I'll bring you in first. Joint favourites to finish top after 26.
This is probably the graphic I understand the least, which, I mean, what I will say though is to Duggan and Swan, great numbers, great stats, great graphics. I think these are fantastic. What a great job the lads have done. But I had us down to finish. I had us down to finish second in the predictions. So I guess that joint top kind of makes sense. It doesn't necessarily be in line with the other screens, but it's kind of not far off. I don't know, the 18% and I know it's not suggesting that Fulchester finished third, but it kind of looks like they're going to finish third. I don't know. Maybe it's me being a bit thick. I don't understand this one quite so clearly.
So this is just purely people were asked who will finish top after 26 games, and you got 32% of that particular vote.
And as somebody said there that Gazelles are going to finish top after 26 games.
Well, you can guess.
Probably Martin.
Yeah, and then you can do the maths kind of upwards from there.
Crikey, because I would have thought Martin would even have said he's going to finish bottom.
Martin, listen, of all the managers, Martin was definitely the most confident that the Gazelles are going to win the whole thing and finish top.
Wait, does that mean 16 Martins said that Bernard finished top?
Yeah, so there was loads. So there was like, I fired loads of individual Twitter messages to people that I knew watched but wouldn't necessarily be in the thread.
All right.
This was the one question that we got the most responses for. I think there was about 30 odd, maybe 40 people that responded to this one question.
And the fact that my responses got kicked out, I just take that as a win. I've got one fan somewhere.
I hope that's Kieran, mate. For you.
But no, as I have to echo the words of Ian, we have to thank both Duggan and Swan for their fantastic stats work. That pretty much brings to a conclusion tonight's preview episode. What I'd like to do, if it's okay, is just quickly go around everyone and just again sort of say what you're hoping to achieve this year, and obviously you're all going to say win it, but what we can expect. So I'll go in reverse order as you appear on the screen. Mr. Campbell, how much are you looking forward to Sunday, and what can we expect from Haggis this year?
I'm trying to do 2 things at once. I just figured that you can chat on this. Just try to do it. But for the season, can't wait, Fyfie, mate. As I said before, it seems ages. I do fucking miss it. It gives me something to fucking take my mind off the shit that's going on in the world. It's no great, is it? So it really is good on a Sunday and Thursday. all the work you've done pre-season, that really is appreciated, mate. It really is. All the players. I've fired another couple of players across to you out of leaguers as well, by the way. If you can get a wee look when you get a chance. Just looking at all the predictions and that, we've been we've been shite basically for my duration. There or thereabouts in the playoffs. So as I say, I'm mixing up this season. I'm using a different formation. Folk have said the squad should be finishing higher, and realistically, I think they should. There's good players there, solid players. I think we should be able to make the playoffs at least. As I say, I'm sticking with this new formation. It suits the players to a T. The signings are brought in. I see nobody rated the window. I think the players we brought in are reasonable players, solid. I don't know what we'll get with them. A couple of gambles, but we'll see. You've got to take a punt. It's the last season, possibly. So I'm going for the playoffs. It's going to be tough, but as long as we finish above Greaves, I'll be a content man. Good luck to everybody for this season. Good luck to everybody, by the way.
Duggan, word at Dragons HQ?
Yeah, if there is no middle ground with Dragons, we're either going to be 20th or 1st, and if we get Sigalco firing early, then we could be right amongst it, but who the fuck knows?
And Mr. Edwards?
What's that, mate?
Just some final words from you from Burn.
I'm just hoping that we can get Peter Afirikwe across the line and he can plug the gap that Sigalco's left and we can compete.
And Mr. Mourinho?
Just looking forward to blending some of my favourites with some world-class players. I'll be delighted with the playoff spot.
Maka?
It's got to be minimum top 6, hasn't it? And then I can fuck off into the sunset and tell everybody how bang average I am.
And Dimble?
The aim's 40 points and to not fall asleep on stream.
Greavesy?
Just to win every game 1-0.
And last word from defending champion Steve.
It's great. I think it'll be a travesty if we don't finish in top 6 after his last season. And but yeah, I'm going out to win it again. I'm going to emulate Ryan, and then make it one better after a redraft after this season. Yeah, I've got a better chance of doing it than Ryan probably had, I would say. But Ryan were playing against teams, a Rocket Sloths under the tutelage of Mr. Rob Sloth. We're playing 3 at back, 4 across midfield, and an AMC and 3, a couple up top. So if I do it, it will be the best regaining of a title ever. And but we'll see what happens from there.
Steve, right? Are you being kidnapped? Is that your code word? Is that the phrase?
Just bumbling on.
Are you in danger?
Having a go at Rob Slaughter playing 3-4-1-2. Where's that come from?
Fyfie, we got prediction, mate.
On the old, on the old, Ryan's all right winning titles second time.
He's woke up pissed off, ain't he?
Hangover's kicked in.
He's been dreaming about Ryan again.
He's got him, haven't he?
Yeah.
He's ruined Colchester.
I'll tell you what, Steve, if you want to guarantee a second title, hire him as director of football. Go on.
If I win it again, I'm retiring. Going up in the sunset and retiring. But no, I'll finish in playoffs. I think I will do. Win it again. It's probably.
Well, it would arguably be. I mean, you've just said that if you finish second, you win it. It'll be like the best retention ever. If you don't make the playoffs after winning it, it'd be the shittest defense ever.
Well, I think Devils' retention were not that great, were it? In fairness,
I don't know. I wasn't in charge, mate.
No matter whether you're in charge, it was same team.
Different manager entirely.
Doesn't really matter, does it? Same team, same players, near enough.
Well, so I'm being blamed for Hodgie not winning the title.
We just decided Hodgie was the goat a minute ago. Hodgie not the greatest of all time.
Steve was asleep then.
Steve was asleep. He's now woken up angry.
Talking about trying to retain it here. We're doesn't really matter what happened the season before. It was about the person in charge trying to retain it.
Right, back to you, Fyfie. Jesus, Steve.
I appreciate that I haven't actually listed my full prediction of 1 to 14 yet, but I'm also conscious of how long this has gone on for. So what I'll do is I'll save that for a little bit of content at the start of game week 1 on Sunday. But gents, thanks very much for joining me. Steve, you can go back to sleep now. Good luck to everyone this campaign, and I hope all the managers enjoy what the season has in store. I hope for a controversial free season. And I hope for the legions of fans that we've got, you enjoy all the wonderful content, both on and off the pitch over the next, 20 odd weeks. But from me and from everyone here, until Sunday night, goodbye.
Cheers, Fyfie.
Hope to see you
Bye,
soon. See you later.